I will call the meeting to order. Can we please rise and take the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The consent agenda, we have one item on the consent agenda. The recommended action is approve the following item, which include in the consent agenda, which will be 6A, the minutes from the April 30th regular Board of Education meeting. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff. Second, Dan?
Yep.
Okay. We'll be voting verbally tonight, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6-4-0 against. Next on the agenda is the budget hearing.
Just before we get started, I just wanted to express my appreciation to the board. Thank you very much for the flowers, the kind words, the thoughts, the prayers, the notes. It was very much appreciated.
Sure.
So tonight we're here to talk about the budget. Our board's been working on the budget for a number of months. I think it's really important to understand that the process is an inclusive process in which we, along the way, have held many work sessions, public work sessions, and discussed the budget in our regular board meetings. Information's been posted on the web in a number of different places. As in the past, I think that one thing our board can be proud of is the collaborative nature and the open process through which this budget is developed.
So what you'll be seeing on the, what you'll be voting on May 21st are three different propositions. The first is the budget, which is a budget of $19,388,637, and a tax levy of $15,918,012. And you can see there the estimated tax rate is $7 per thousand. On a $20,000 house, that would be a $29.39 increase. The other second proposition is the lease of 364 passenger buses. And then the third will be the Board of Education elections. We have 2 seats available, and we'll go over those later. And the last will be the E.M. Cooper Library here in Wilmington, funding of increase of $750.
So I want to start talking about the revenue and expenses. So we'll start with revenue. This is really a big picture discussion. There are more details in the booklet that is available tonight and is also available online through our website. So I would encourage anybody who's interested to please take a look at the details. But the pie chart is really a big picture. Where does the money come from? Well, our school district, because of the relative property wealth within our school district, has to rely most heavily on property taxes. So what you see in that big blue area is the percent of our revenue that comes from property taxes, over 80%. And this has been typically the case for a number of years. Formulas are different in different school districts, and that means that some school districts will rely more heavily on state aid. But you can see in the green area that our percentage of state aid is less than 15%. So once again, this is one of the things that distinguishes us from other districts, our reliance on property taxes. So I think if you take away one message from the revenue piece, it's that we must rely most heavily on property taxes. So in terms of expenditures, where do we spend the money? Well, school districts are really required to report expenditures in 3 different categories. One is the administrative category, one is the capital category, and one is the program category. So again, there's much more detail in the booklet about this, but the big picture here is that in our district we emphasize program. What is program? Program is everything related to instruction and extracurricular activities, and that includes everything from the salaries of teachers and teaching assistants to the cost of busing, to transport kids to and from their activities, to the athletic program, to our clubs, etc. So what you'll notice, and there's another graph to demonstrate this, is that that green area that you're looking at continues to grow. And what does that mean? Well, everything, of course, is relative, right? And that means that we have a limited amount of money to work with. But what that means is that every year we try to find ways to focus our resources into the program area. And sometimes that's at the expense of the administrative and capital area. But this year is a good example of that, and that'll be clear later. But again, if there's one takeaway here, it's that it's our educational programs where we highlight, that we emphasize, and that dominate our use of resources.
As was just explained, our emphasis is on the program, and this chart just shows or validates that the administrative, the capital have both gone down this year in expenditures, and the programmatic aspect has gone up by 2.52%. As Dr. Catania said, the programming components are instruction, extracurricular activities, salaries, both teaching and faculty, as well as busing. So the decrease in capital this year is due to a debt payment schedule that was terminated, and we will see an increase in that amount of capital after our capital project that we're beginning this year is finished.
So some basic facts about this budget that some people would like to know. One is that because of the way the property tax cap legislation reads, we must first look at the rate of inflation, and that's the CPIU. Okay, so the rate of inflation this year is 2.44%, but the property tax law says that to stay within the property tax cap, any CPIU over 2% is really must kind of slip back down to the maximum allowable growth factor, which is 2%. So if that CPIU is 2.1, 2.44, 3.5, it doesn't matter. We build our property tax cap on the 2% figure. So of course, this year, like last year, CPIU exceeds that maximum allowable growth factor, and so we are at the max at 2%. Now there's calculations that go into calculating that tax cap, and again, we've talked about that in previous budget work sessions. So after that calculation is done, our tax cap is 2.1%, and this budget does go to the maximum of that cap, 2.1% increase in property tax levy. Other facts, there are other areas that, again, we just want to make sure that brings people's attention. First is that our BOCES costs will be increasing next year by approximately 5.06%, so we have to calculate that in. Our health insurance premiums are increasing by 2%. That usually surprises people because most people know that health insurance increases at a much higher rate, on average nationally 5% or more. But our health insurance consortium is well managed, and we're able to keep that increase pretty minimal at 2%. TRS, that's the teacher retirement system. Every year we must pay a percentage of salaries to the teacher retirement system. And that percentage changes every year, and they tell us what that percentage is. So this year, the good news is that that percentage is lower for next year than it was for this year. So this year we're paying 10.63% of all salaries towards TRS, Next year it'll be 8.86% of all salaries. And so overall, our actual contribution towards teacher retirement is decreasing. And then just another piece, and this really doesn't fall within the range of the budget, but it certainly does fall within our fiscal worldview. There is a BOCES capital project out there that we're also in the process of paying for. And again, the board has talked about this for a couple of years, ever since the capital project was developed. They're underway. They're just a little bit ahead of us as far as up where they are in construction. Next year, we'll be spending $763,186 towards that capital project, but you won't find that in the budget because that's coming out of our fund balance. That's what the board wanted to do. That's what we've planned to do, and that's what we'll do this year. And this graph, I've shared it with the board before, and again, the attempt here is just to illustrate how the CPIU has impacted budgeting. So the CPIU is in blue, and the history of our school budget since the 06-07 school year is in red. You can see that overall our budgets have decreased, and you can see also that overall for the first part of this graph, from about 06-07 to about 2011-2012, there really wasn't a strong relationship between the CPIU and our budget. We created our budget, CPIU did what it wanted to do. What changed in here was the tax cap law. Once that tax cap law came into play, our budget was a reflection of the CPIU. So they're not exactly the same, as you can see from the calculation that we have for this year, 2%, actually 2.44% to 2.1%. But you can see there is a correlation between the two. So for the past 4, 5, 6 years, our budgets have been a reflection of the national rate of inflation. And then, just in general, people say, well, what are you spending? What are you doing with this budget, right? Like, what are the highlights? And to be honest with you, this is much more of a status quo budget, and I think the board knows that from having worked on it for the past few months. Again, in our number one priority in our strategic plan is students first and foremost. So a goal has been to maintain the existing instructional and extracurricular programs. We have done that with this budget to maintain them, not increase them, but maintain them. We're also maintaining present staffing, but we are not adding any positions. You might remember that last year we did add a librarian position. That's been, by the way, dramatic improvement district-wide. This year we are not doing that, and our budget doesn't really allow for that. But it did allow for some pieces, including replacing some aging maintenance equipment. And of course, we have to account for the capital project, and Rick mentioned before how paying off one project and then bringing in another. There's a transitional period in there, and our budget does reflect that transitional period. We do have a couple of STEM clubs that we are starting to provide some exclusive funding or separate budget item lines. That's Science Olympiad Club and the Robotics Club. So that's a small piece here. And yet, most of our budget lines in that 300 and something line spreadsheet that Dana's been providing all along, most of our budget lines are really flat from this year to next year. And I guess I want to emphasize that helps us balance this budget, right? But I also want people to know that flat funding isn't really flat funding. In reality, it's a cut, right? Because as we know, prices go up, costs increase. Flat funding means that we are able to accomplish less in those particular areas than we could a year, 2, 3 ago. So we are working very hard to do more with less, and this budget really reflects that.
So why do we maintain small classes, offer extracurricular activities, have field trips, and also provide well-resourced libraries? Well, schooling has changed. This looks like my class when I went to school. We sat we were lectured at, we went home, we memorized things, we came back, and we were being tested on it. Today's classroom is completely different. It's engaging, it's collaborative, there's discussion groups, we use technology in order to advance ourselves. And in order to get that, we must budget or program in that direction. So the requirements allow us or mandate us to prioritize in the new way of teaching. This I saw for the first time last year when we did this presentation, and not unlike last year, I look at it again this year and say, I'm amazed at it. And what this chart is the number of free and reduced lunch students in our district. And you can see we're on a steady climb here. National average has increased a little bit during the 2012, 13, 14, and now is pretty flatlined or has actually gone down where we continue to be on the rise. And because of this, we have a strategic goal in the board, which is it's the most pressing goal that I see in our strategic plan, and that is to reduce or close the opportunity gap. And that is the underprivileged children have the same desires, they have the same goals of becoming successful, being educated, but they're not always afforded the same opportunities as those that are of greater wealth. So in our school district, we maintain our small sizes, and we repeat the school trips, the extracurricular activities, and we give them access to libraries, technology, science labs, and the arts so that we can close that gap.
So those are some good reasons as to why we do what we do. There are other reasons though, and I really want to emphasize this, that we're not just trying to keep people afloat, and we're not just trying to maintain a bare minimum school program. We're trying to change lives. We're trying to make our community better. We're trying to make our state better. We're trying to make our country and our world a better place. And what better institution to do that than public schools? Right? So we believe our school does that. We know from the past that our schools made a difference in people's lives. These are just 3 examples. So one of the things that we do is we allow students to we invite students to not just participate in theater, but to actually write and direct the shows. So this is Adeline over here with Aiden and Lindsay, and this was this year's
Murder Mystery.
Thank you very much. Murder Mystery show. Adeline wrote it. These were some of the actors, and Adeline directed it. So it's the kind of thing that takes a kid 1 or 2 steps beyond being a participant or being just a visitor. She's really doing it. She's really making it happen, right? This is Burke. Burke graduated a couple of years ago. Burke moved here in 7th grade from Alaska. He was a part of an indigenous group of people who were struggling in many, many different ways. And he values his community, still values his community, but he wanted better education. So he moved to Lake Placid. He moved in with an uncle, and he took off in our school. And he went from being a student who just tried to pass his classes to being a student who was on the speaking tour and participating in national events. He was invited to the White House as a representative of teenagers who are indigenous teenagers. Burke graduated. He's at Wells College right now. He's in his 2nd year. He's doing fabulously. And I really don't think that kind of thing happens without a wonderful person and a wonderful school to support it. And then this story over here, we've told this story in these before, but it's a good one. That's Ron Burkume. That's a picture of Ron Burkume. He's on the cover of a book written by Tim Fowles. Both are graduates of Lake Placid High School. And this is the biography of Ron, who was a high school dropout, who was growing up in poverty, and who latched on to some aspects of our school that typically we don't say are the high achieving areas. It was the visual arts, it was computers, and it captured his attention. The teachers who worked with him helped mold and shape him, and they went out of their way to expose him to what the possibilities were. Ron went from being a high school dropout to being a high school graduate to being a college graduate. He attended RIT, he studied graphic design, he went out and did some wonderful things in his world, including being a mover and shaker who got his best friend to write a biography of him. So a really great story. Anyway, I think the message here is that we don't just want the bare minimum. We want a great school that can change lives like these lives. And people also like to know how are we doing, right? And I think that the numbers will demonstrate that our students do very well. We're proud of our high graduation rate. State average is in the low 80s, where our graduation rate is over 90% and is very consistent in that respect. We do well when measured in not just graduation rates, but also SAT scores, also college going rates for schools like ours when compared to state averages. I think this is interesting, our college and our career and military, because I think what this demonstrates is not just that our kids have opportunities to go to college and to enter careers, but it also shows how that changes every year. Right? We have a small school, and different kids come through. What happens is that on any one given year, a student may be looking for something different. And we're able to provide that, even though we're a pretty small school district. So some years, we do have a heavy population of students who will go to, for example, the Adirondack Ed Center and study in some of the career fields. Some of them will go on to school, college, and technical school, but some of them will go right into the work world or the military. And so it changes. Some years it's more like this, and this. Some years it's more like this. But I think that's also a sign of success, that we work with lots of different kids and help them accomplish lots of different goals.
So what are the reasons to be proud? I think we've gone over quite a few of those, but here's a short list of them, and I won't read them to you. You can go through those. Also on page 38, 39, and 40 of your budget booklet, there's a complete list of those. Reasons to be proud, the reasons why we as a board are proud of our students.
And if you don't like to read lists, we'll show you some pictures. This is the past year in the schools.
Next year I will ask for the music to be changed.
It's the perfect amount of time.
So On to the next proposition that you'll be seeing, and that's the Board of Education vacancies. We have 2 vacancies. One is Brian Liam Canelli's position and my position, and we have both submitted petitions and will be running again. Also, we value your opinion, and we'd like your opinion, so please, whether you vote here or whether you vote in Lake Placid, please complete a survey, an exit poll survey upon departing the voting. So remember to vote. It's May 21st, Tuesday, Wilmington Community Center right here, and the Lake Placid Elementary School from 2 to 9. Also, we've included the phone number and email address if you need an absentee ballot. You can contact either, I'll contact Karen.
And if you forgot to take notes tonight, I believe that this entire slideshow is posted on our website. Is that right?
The slideshow's not yet, but I will.
Almost there. Tomorrow. And I believe that's it. Yes.
Nice job.
Any questions? Questions or comments?
I just wish I was had be going to school a little later in life than
Thanks.
I didn't have a good experience in Lake Placid High School. Coming from a 6-room schoolhouse that sat right up here.
Mm-hmm.
Never told too many people about it, but it wasn't good. I mean, I graduated. I didn't have any trouble with any of my courses, but the experience wasn't good. And I hope now that Wilmington students are treated much better.
Well, hopefully the message we're sending is that we're doing everything we can to make that happen.
It sure looks like things are a lot better.
Thanks.
A better note, I'm one of the founding board members of the Wilmington Historical Society, and we send some people for a program with your students on history. I believe it's in the 5th grade. So it's been a good program that we've been able to do jointly.
We appreciate you letting us look in your storage cabinets here. We don't open them, we just look in.
We have a open research day every month, so anybody who wants to come, or by appointment, whatever.
Yeah. Well,
that's another question while I got everybody's attention.
Yes.
Where would the Wilmington school records from District 3 ended up when we centralized Lake Placid?
Where are those records?
Right.
The Wilmington 3? I don't know the answer. Do you know? Are those things that we have? I'm not sure. I don't.
I would assume they're all in the guidance office.
Oh, you mean the individual student records?
Just any record,
Yeah,
like
so-
who was
Yeah.
our school trustees or teachers?
Yeah, those wouldn't be in there. Right. I don't know the answer. It's a good question.
We did a program, or did a project, it was probably in 5th grade, a Peace Bell project. The students were a very small class, probably 10 or 12 of us. We each wrote a representative of the United Nations, and we were trying to get each country to donate a Peace Bell, which was going to be held, or put on the Whiteface Highway, on posts all the way up the highway. But remember, one of my co-students went to the UN to meet the representative of Costa Rica, and we got at least one bell. Like, I have no idea whatever happened to any of that information, or that one bell was.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I will say, I just want to make sure the connections that you're talking about, connection with the Wilmington Historical Society, we also have connections with Lake Placid Historical Society. I'm trying to build connections with the Saranac Lake Historical Society, but they're tough to work with.
Yeah.
That's sorry, I can't tell inside jokes. My wife's the director. They're powerful, and they're ways to really engage kids and really connect them with history and big ideas, because it's all around them. And I really appreciate the Wilmington Historical Society being willing to do that, work with our kids. I hope to do more.
Local history is very important. I don't remember all through school getting very much of local history at all, and it's it's really important stuff.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is come the point when the public may address the board, the good of the cause. We set aside a time period not to exceed 30 minutes where those that would like to address the board may. I might add that this is not a time where you'll get answers or receive feedback, but it's time for people to express their opinions. So, anyone wishing to address the board? Great. So we'll move right along to reports. First report is the board orientation. I will keep this brief, I promise. In my research through NYSBA, I found 2 webinars. One was titled After the Elections, New Board Member Orientation, and the second was Planning a Successful Board Orientation. I actually found, one was from 2016, the other from 2017. I actually found the one from 2016 to be more comprehensive and more to my liking anyhow. But just a couple highlights. They're sort of, yeah, no kidding type of points, but new board members will alter the dynamics of the board. I think we've all experienced that who are on boards. So the goal of any orientation program is to expedite the process by which homeostasis is reached. And then the new board member feels welcome, they feel like they're contributing, they're not feeling like they're stepping on toes. So, first language, traditionally we use the term orientation. In the corporate world, and I know in healthcare, we use a term called onboarding. Same thing, but a little different. So within onboarding, there's an orientation period, and it generally lasts, an hour or two. And for all of you who have gone through orientation, I believe, you probably felt like you were drinking through a fire hose for 2 hours. And then here's some books for you. Go home and read these. That's not the optimal learning process, and NYSBA points that out. The average onboarding process can last from 2 to 4 months. So that doesn't mean that you're going through orientation for 4 to 6 months, but the fact that you have somebody to lean on and you're having little meetings during that time period. So some of the things that the new board members are thinking, should I know more about education? Should I know more about the district? Where do I sit? I think that's one of our, with Karen's little juggling match that she does, it's like, why is my seat changed? Did I do something wrong? How do I say things? How do I interject? What do I say to parents? So on and so forth. So, and again, it's like one of the slides was, drinking out of a fire hose. It's something that we all have experienced. But so my proposal is that we're going to, I'd like to change to an onboarding process, and I'll explain that here in 20 seconds or so. But some of the stats that NYSBA uses that was rather interesting with a normal 2-hour orientation, and then putting Dan in his seat and letting him find his own way, the average board member will feel comfortable and confident after 2.88 years. Remember, we have 3-year terms. Doesn't give a whole lot of leeway there. The upside to that is you'll probably run again. The downside to that is it's that long to orient. With the onboarding process, they're looking at that 4 to 6 months. After the onboarding process, people feel very comfortable interjecting, becoming part of the conversation, and so on. So again, my proposal would be to revamp the current process and initiate the onboarding process. It includes all board member participation. So each person would identify what their strengths are and basically spend 15 or 20 minutes with a new board member and review your strong points, your strong suit. that serves twofold. Number one, you're educating the new board member, but also one of the key components in the onboarding process is improving socialization. And that's just what that does. It gets the new board member to know you personally. We had a board member, when I came on the board, who we got together for coffee. And he said, "What are your questions?" And it was, I didn't know him at the time. I didn't know John at the time, but it got me to know John. I took on he took on a mentor for me. If I had questions, I had his phone number, and that was very comforting to me anyhow. So I won't get into a lot of this, but I'd certainly like to put something in writing, which I apologize, I didn't have time to put a whole lot of this into written format. But the key components are the orientation phase. That's the first phase. And that's generally done, they suggest, with the superintendent and the current board president and anyone else who's interested. And that's the traditional type of thing. Policies, procedures, roles, responsibilities, and a lot of that you can find in the NYSBA's basic roles and responsibility guide. The process actually starts right after the elections. You don't wait until they're sworn in. The process starts right away. So getting them acclimated, there's not a honeymoon period where I'm on the board and they sit back, but you initiate that process right on, so that after the first meeting, the reorganizational meeting in July, they hit the ground running, or at least walking fast. So, does anybody have any questions? I know that was really brief, but it's a matter of probably 6 meetings. Short meetings, like I said, 20 minutes to an hour, whatever the individual is conducting the field. And I'll put together what the headlines are of those meetings, and see what you think. Would you like me to move forward with that? I think it's an important process. So,
Yeah.
Did you print any of the handouts out?
I did.
Okay, I printed them out also.
Okay, good. Mine are covered in notes, so I can print out. You did though?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
So the 2016-17s are somewhat different, but 16 seem to be more comprehensive.
It's whatever you sent me the link for.
Yes.
You sent me both. Yep.
Great. Any thoughts, questions?
No, I think it's really a great, it's high time we actually formalize the process, and I think I had the same experience with John, and I think it's really helpful to just have that was like 20 minutes, but it was a great initiation to what to expect, and more importantly, maybe what not to do, right, or what to do. But yeah, I think it's a really good idea, Rick. Thanks.
Does NYSBA send you all this handbook, surviving your first year? Do you get this from NYSBA when you guys come on
I don't
board?
remember. We got something. Maybe it was in that binder.
I don't recall
recall
that.
getting something.
When you took the course?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was with the course. You're right.
I think we got something, Karen,
Yeah.
at some point.
Which is 6 months after you start.
Yeah.
Just a-
Mary Dietrich was great when I came on. She was really a wonderful mentor. She availed herself for, a month or two. Checked in with me, with questions, and she was great. So I think it is an important component.
We appreciated her what not to do speech today.
Yeah.
Like I was still in AP US history.
Yeah, exactly.
Heard that tone before.
I did, it sent me back. I was like, okay.
I'll go inside.
All right, so we'll move right along. Superintendent's report.
All right, so I'm glad we're able to provide this information to the Wilmington community tonight. Thank you for coming out. I also want to say I appreciate our large online following that I know is watching this presentation. So this is one of many opportunities for us to share the budget with the community, the school district community. This Thursday morning, Rick and I will be at the Rotary Club meeting making this presentation. Friday afternoon, we'll be at the middle and high school speaking with the faculty. Next Tuesday, we repeat this presentation at our next board meeting in Lake Placid. Then there's 2 other sessions, one with the transportation staff, and that's on Monday, May 20th, and then the other is with the elementary school faculty, and that's also on the 20th in the afternoon. In addition, as I mentioned before, budget information will be available, is available right now, but more will be available online on the website, plus anybody can access our information through the board docs website that we're accessing right now. So lots of different ways for community members to gain information about our budget. Moving on to activities in the school, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. Board, I believe last week passed the resolution in support of Teacher Appreciation Week, so there have been some different variety of ways that teachers have been shown that people appreciate them, including we've had some students who are in the cosmetology program at BOCES offering some free services. I think it was manicure.
Hand massages.
Hand massages. But there's some food and other goodies provided. And I think just a lot of really positive messages that demonstrate how much we appreciate our teachers. So a nice week, and thank you to the board for passing that resolution. This week and next week are AP exams. These exams, these are the exams that follow the AP class. This is the college level courses that we offer at Lake Placid High School. These are national exams that all students who take these courses nationwide are taking. So yesterday was the AP Environmental Science exam, and that's followed by the AP Literature exam, which is tomorrow, the AP US History exam on Friday, and then next week with the AP Biology, the AP Physics, and the AP English Language and Composition exams. In total, 34 students will be taking 48 exams over the course of these 2 weeks. So best of luck to all of our students who have put in a whole lot of time and effort into these courses. They're very rigorous courses, they're well worth the effort. And this is one way for kids to demonstrate how they did. At the elementary school, these past 2 days have been kindergarten registration days. So families and children have been coming through the building. Just to put it in perspective, we have 43 kindergartners this year. So we are definitely eager to see how many students will register for next year. These 2 days will register some of those students, but not all. And students will be registering probably throughout the spring and into the summer. This is also Enthusiasm Month. This is part of the PBIS program at the elementary school. So if you can imagine that the elementary school actually needs an enthusiasm month. They got lots of enthusiasm, and I would bet that there's no shortage of that enthusiasm as they get closer to June, sun shines, and they're able to branch out a little bit beyond the walls of the school. So, but that's a fun thing, and their PBIS program has been really outstanding, run by a volunteer committee, including, I'll just highlight one of our teachers, Keith Fountain, who's a special ed teacher, who has done so much to bring that PBIS program alive. So we're doing very well at the elementary school with PBIS stands for positive behavior intervention supports. So we'll just stick with PBIS and say it's a good thing. The spring music season's upon us, so the middle school band and chorus concert is tomorrow night. That's at the middle and high school, 7 o'clock. The high school spring concert is a week later, the following Wednesday. So if you're available and interested, come out and enjoy the music and celebrate the accomplishments of our students who worked hard this year.
It's also the art show.
Yes, thank you. Saturday night is the junior-senior prom. Now Karen, I believe, posted information about the prom, and it looks like this. It says, "Join us for a night you'll never forget, midnight serenade, class of 2020 prom." I just want to clarify, you're not being invited to the prom.
Yeah.
I got all excited.
All right, but this is what kids receive. All right, and I think Karen put the menu on so you could see what they'll be eating. It's at the Lake Placid Golf House. And then afterwards, the after prom party will follow. And you know, if we had our meeting tonight in the administrative annex in the boardroom there, you would have passed a car sitting in front of the building, and that's a Hyundai Sonata, it's a 2011 Hyundai Sonata, and that car will be raffled off to one junior or senior who attends the after prom party.
Great.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We did it last year for the first time. It was a big hit. I think Hallie Cora won that car.
Yes.
Yes, and this year we're doing it again. Great incentive. It's one of many incentives to bring kids to the after prom party. We work very hard to promote that event. We want kids after the prom to have fun, but also to be safe. And this is a way that that can happen. Really appreciate the efforts of our faculty members who oversee that, Lynn and Emily Convey, who've been behind that for the last couple of years.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
How do we handle students who can't afford the ticket to go to prom?
Do you answer for that?
I don't have an answer for you for that.
Okay.
In the past,
Yeah. And hit and miss.
it's just kind of been covered.
Yeah, so we have found ways to cover, but I don't have a clear
Yep.
explanation
Right.
of the program.
Is it through student council maybe?
No, I think if adults in the building get wind of it, they make sure it happens.
Okay. Thanks.
And, you know, just in general, this is a busy time of year. It's May. Teachers and students are seeing the end of the school year, and they know that there's a lot to accomplish between now and then. So there's a lot going on, not just on the ball fields and not just, you know, in the auditorium, but there's a lot going on in the classrooms, and it's important to know that.
Is the elementary art show, is that the same evening as the budget vote?
It is.
It is, okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, that's everything for me.
Thank you. Under information for the board, there are several attached files. One is the amendment to the state election law. Those of you on the policy committee will most likely be seeing a policy come through from NISBA regarding that. There's also the 10-year recommendation letters. That's a form letter, correct? That gets sent out to the somewhat, yeah, a standardized letter, let's call it.
And it's a part of our contractual obligations to inform people in advance and to inform the board what we're informing people.
And then an email and a file on the composting. I believe we'll be hearing about that next meeting. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any questions on those items? If not, we go into linking goals with agenda items.
Steve's first and foremost for the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I will email you mine. I did them all, left them sitting on my desk. I have a whole page full of them.
Make sure you CC me on that.
I will.
No, just send them to me.
Education, number 2, just more again with the budget and the focus on the students and the almost 80% that's put into actual education. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? We've not discussed sports mergers yet, but those would fall under students first and foremost as well. Are there any others? I'll look forward to your email.
We'll get it tonight.
All right, 5, capital project update. If you have never attended a bid opening, I found it so interesting. I wish I would have attended one. Well, we had the opportunity, but it was very interesting. So, do you want any highlights from either of you?
So yesterday was the day when when bids were presented, and they were opened in a formal session, and we provided you with actually the information. Thank you, Karen, for doing that. Provided you with the information of what came out of yesterday, and so there's a file on board docs that you can look at, which will show you what those bids were. You can see there were low bids in every area. Do you want to talk about sort of the big picture with the total bids that came through, and
Yeah.
alternates and things like that?
Basically what it came down to is, based on the preliminary numbers, and Mosaic is kind of going through to kind of finalize everything, is between the base budget and all the alternates, everything came in under budget.
Great.
That's great news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still, they don't have like a specific dollar amount, but they're.
But even the high bids came in under?
Well, yeah, looking at all, if you see, it's a 6-page document, so
Yeah,
there
right.
was, everything that we put out there in terms of the bid process
That's
came
great.
in under the overall dollar amounts for actual construction. Something like, $13.9, $14 million in terms of construction costs. So what we threw, so that's it. That's a good sign. They were definitely concerned. Our schoolhouse manager, schoolhouse construction, they said that they hadn't seen something up here in the North Country where it's actually been under budgets. So that's a good thing, and partly they really attribute that to kind of pushing things back out a little longer, giving these firms an ability to throw out a good competitive bid, knowing that they're really doing the work next year and putting themselves in a position to have work all the way through to next a year from November. So that was a good indicator.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I think the next school board meeting will be approving and awarding the contracts.
Great. All right, moving right along to additional action items. 7A is donation acceptance. The recommended action is whereas Lake Placid Central Schools Board of Education Policy 6255, donations, gifts, and grants to the district allow for the superintendent of schools to accept on behalf of the board gifts and donations having a value of less than $1,500. Whereas monies have been received in the amount of $5,000 from the Adirondack Foundation for the purposes of funding the following: math and movement, $3,000, and summer reading, $2,000. Now therefore let it be resolved, in accordance with policy 6255, the Board of Education hereby accepts the checks from the Adirondack Foundation in the amounts of $3,000 and $2,000 for the projects noted above. May I have a motion, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. May I have a second? Yes. Thank you, Joe. Questions, comments?
I asked this be taken out of the consent agenda because I'm really curious about the process of receiving gifts and then cultivating the relationship towards receiving larger gifts in the future. And I know that a very formal thank you gets sent. In private fundraising, there's often a less formal thank you note, like a handwritten even thank you note or something like that. I don't even know if that's remotely appropriate for this kind of situation, but.
Well, this is through the Generous Acts Fund, so this is a grant program, not to a single donor.
Okay.
And
Did somebody apply for those?
yes, so I believe they're mentioned on the checks. But just to highlight that, so the math and movement donation, this was a grant that was written primarily by our 5th grade math teacher. She's a new teacher to our district, Jessica Kelly, and she has been actively researching and now promoting our utilization of this program of math and movement. Essentially means that kids learn math not through worksheets or through calculation, but by actually doing. And so there's a series of mats and other things that you can spread out on the floor that allows kids to jump, hop, move to different spots in the maps. That's a reflection of different math concepts. So I participated in the math and movement night that we offered at the elementary school. And this was an opportunity for other teachers, not just Ms. Kelly, but others to come there. And there were teachers that were there from the elementary, but also the middle and high school, and participate in in just being exposed to this. So we borrowed maths basically for the night. And afterward, there was a really unanimous agreement that we should do our best to bring these kinds of opportunities to our kids. So that's when Jessica went ahead and wrote the grant.
Okay.
So it's through the Adirondack Foundation. And just to follow, so Adirondack Foundation isn't necessarily a single donor, but they are an organization that we have built a very strong relationship with. And they have emphasized certain areas of focus in their strategic plan, and one of those areas is education and children. There might actually be two areas in their plan, because they're also looking at the youngest children. So we've got some really good connections with them, and I mean in the best of ways, that we work with them, we talk with them, we help them in any way we can, they help us in any way they can, and so it's been a good relationship. I do believe that they've got us in their radar in terms of an organization that makes the most of what is a wonderfully generous but a limited amount of money.
Yeah.
And so what we can accomplish with $3,000 here is great. They've also been helping with this, the $2,000 reading grant. That's really led by Laura Coffin. She's been writing grants and raising funds now for a number of years to try and build up this library of books that she then gives to students at the end of the year. And so that's been a huge positive change, a very exciting event at the elementary school in June, but a wonderful way for kids to go home from school with books that they selected, and then keep on reading. She's, in her mind, it's a way to reduce what they call the summer slide. That's the slide back in reading ability. So this grant supports that. She's also gained a lot of support from the Rotary Club, as you know, and from other organizations. So there's a lot of work going on to build these relationships and to gain that support.
Thank you so much for telling me.
Thank you for the question. I agree. If it's from a private donor, I think we should fill out one of our cards and send a handwritten note. I think that's a
Yeah.
great touch. So
Okay,
thank you.
great.
Any other questions on the donation acceptance? If not, may I please have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-4, 0 against. 7B is a sports merger. Recommended action is approve the following sports mergers on the attached sheet for the 2019-2020 school year. I would be more than happy to read through these if you'd like. Otherwise, may I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Martha.
I think it's great to see Keene coming on board and deciding to merge with us on a lot of these sports. I think Keene kind of has led the way in schools that have adapted to shrinking population, and fortunately or unfortunately, this is definitely the future of sports up here in the North Country, and I'm glad to see that. And it's always with mixed emotions too, because it's we are losing our own individuality as a school district, but certainly so the kids can continue to have those opportunities. It's good to see that Keene certainly is joining us in all of these.
You'll see down at the bottom, the not included are the boys hockey, alpine skiing, and modified lacrosse, as well as golf. I did get a letter on the meeting in Raybrook regarding the hockey, so if any of you are interested, did you all get?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you'd like the date and time, I'm sure Karen has that. One question, if you recall when we merged the women's hockey team or the girls hockey team, there was two parents from Tupper Lake there who felt that not only their daughter, but that there would be 3, 4, 5 girls coming up. Now I notice that there's none. So are they going elsewhere, I wonder, or do you have any idea?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm not sure where they would go.
I'm sure that, right, I'm sure the trip from Tupper Lake to Lake Placid and or Saranac Lake is stressful, so, well, that's too bad. Okay. Any-
I forgot to add one comment. I forgot that while I'm happy to see that Keene is joining, I am not very thrilled about the merger on the football. And as I'll restate my opposition to, I believe at the time was not a merger, but what, a joint.
So they're approved as mergers, but they're really, I think I tried to put that in the notes. If it's their program, it remains their program, then our kids have to do whatever it takes to accommodate, the transition from here to there. Whereas if it's a shared team, the SLP teams, then the school districts are providing transportation and resources and those kinds of things.
So with the Saranac Lake football team, are we providing resources?
No.
Okay.
It's a two-way street though.
Yeah.
And that they're not providing resources for some of the teams that
Sure.
We host, where we're the host. So it kind of depends right now on who's the host. And we're going to talk some more about that.
Yeah, because I was, it actually had the thought cross my mind when I was that long journey back from Canton. I was like, can't we make up maybe some of the shortfall with having Keene chip in for the sports?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you've seen it. It's probably.
I was like, get them hooked
doubled in
first.
the last 2
And then
years. Right? So that list is doubled.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on the sports mergers? If not, may I please have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And opposed? I'm not used to saying that. It's strange. 7-4-0 against. Motion passes. 7C is special education, which is information only. And the packet is available for the May 14th meeting. Next on the agenda is anticipated executive session, subject to board approval to discuss the superintendent's evaluation. We need to discuss whether we are going into executive session or if we have just an open meeting regarding that. It would be an open meeting unless we're going to ask or direct specific questions towards an individual, in this case the superintendent. We would then enter into executive session. If it was just general questions regarding the super eval, how to do things, where to go and that type of thing, then we have to remain open in the open meeting. So, does anyone have any specific questions regarding the superintendent?
Just the evaluation itself, Rick?
Right.
I have one question. Are we expected to write a written comment for every category? Sometimes I'm looking through and it doesn't seem like it's maybe relevant, or I don't have the knowledge base or something, so are we permitted to skip over a written comment?
Certainly. Did you put the comments together, or did Mary last year? I'll be putting them together this year.
Well, I think the
Compiling
program
them.
actually does it.
Yeah.
It does?
Yes.
Oh, darn.
It's amazing, it consolidates everything.
Right, right.
So, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, if you really don't have, if you're just writing to write, then I
Yeah.
would say no. But obviously, if you're at one end or the other, we'd like some sort of support for why you're
Okay.
thinking.
Except there's some that
There's
says required.
Required.
Yeah.
Or you may
Yes.
just have to say NA or something
Yeah.
so that you
Just
put
put
something.
it
No,
up
they
to
wanted
it.
like supporting data, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
where's that coming from?
that's kind of tough. Yeah, so, but yeah, what I've been doing is just taking like examples and putting in the comment section instead of trying to import stuff that I don't have.
What do we have for, has everybody gotten in? Not quite yet,
No.
but,
Okay.
okay.
It's gonna happen next 15
You gotta call Mrs. Dietrich.
Exactly.
Let's see if I can do this.
And just so if you haven't done
Gentlemen, young man, appreciate it if you would get to work here.
They're probably watching it right now, so there you go.
if you haven't gotten in and you don't have a password, it's your email address. You can just there's a thing that says don't have a password, and they'll send you an email directly, and it's simple to change it and get right in.
Plus, there is an online chat option
Right.
that I accessed a couple of times to have someone help me, and this person was great.
So I think that's all we really wanted to accomplish with that item,
Mhm.
is making sure everybody was comfortable. This is a new process. A little overwhelming for some of us non-technical people, but I think at the end it's going to be a nice tool. How did you find it?
Well, as Colleen, you pointed out, and Jeff pointed out, there's a lot of required things to fill in,
Mhm.
and so I did feel compelled to fill them in. And so if you do go through every one of those and do try and write comments and everything, it does take a while, and that's the only piece that I thought was challenging, was there was a lot to it, and that's no surprise. And I come out the other side having reflected even more than I planned on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just
Well, if to put in perspective, you go to print yours out, it's 22 pages.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information. It was collecting a ton of stuff.
well, you were saying, Colleen, that maybe you didn't have data, but part of the questions for me were can you provide some data, or can you provide some evidence? And so I did spend some time looking. Now looking is what's in here, because I finding evidence outside and then putting that in there would have been even more challenging. So I tried to put in there as much as might be helpful to anybody.
Good.
But I also recognized that once I was done with that, it was long.
Mm-hmm.
And
No,
because some of those documents that I posted, they're not just simple little documents. Some of them are very long too.
Yeah.
And so I almost felt bad that I had maybe I don't want to put you in a position to feel like it's way more than you can handle. I don't think that's fair to you. But with those questions, I did feel kind of compelled to.
No, it's good, and it's
Do
helpful
this,
for
okay.
us to go back through those and look at that. I did think it was very streamlined. I thought it was a great tool.
One of the things what I'm doing is I'm taking like Roger's self-evaluation, importing it into mine, and then if I disagree, then I'll make a change and say why. That way it's got a lot less than having
Right.
to fill everything out by yourself, because it's already done for the most part.
I know this was introduced to the BOCES board. Salmon River is a huge, or at least the representative from Salmon River is a huge proponent of this program, and they use it on an ongoing basis.
Mhm.
So that when it comes to be about this time of year, it's just going back and reflecting on things that you've put in along the way.
That's a great way to do it, I think.
That's better than doing it.
But that'll take some discipline as well.
Mhm.
Anything else? The dates you have when things are due, so if you can just move along fairly,
14th, right? This needs to be submitted.
Yes.
Yeah, so we got it next week.
Uh,
Get on it.
1 week.
hope it rains this weekend.
Exactly. Yep. Hope it's a
It probably
rainy,
will.
cold,
They're-
snowy
They're in
weekend.
the forecast.
Okay, if there's nothing more on that, we'll move along to the adjournment phase. Next meeting date and location, there's the, Roger went over the hearings that we held. We have May 8th is at 6:30, is our regular meeting and a hearing. And the budget vote, of course, is on the 15th.
Are you sure about that?
That's last year's.
Oh, is
I
it?
changed it
Oh, okay.
after Dan said something.
May
Let me
Yeah,
stop reading
it
off
was
my
like-
sheet, and I'll read off.
Sorry, Rex.
So May 14th is the next meeting, formal meeting and budget hearing, and then the budget vote's the 21st. And you have the dates in there, so. Also, old agenda topics, superintendent eval was in there, board orientation, which has already been addressed, and then the visiting this St. Agnes school busing, we'll discuss when we put that on, so. New agenda topics, I just added, in reviewing the strategic goals, possibly addressing the technology goal, number 5. I don't think we got into that this year. A report regarding technology.
It's one of those goals that, when we identify things, they're going everywhere else but.
Right, okay.
Can I ask on the old agenda topics,
Yes.
what does that mean, St. Agnes School busing? What's that topic?
That question came up at a meeting about the busing that we provide to St. Agnes, both during the school year, but also in the summer.
Okay.
And just to tail end to what Rick just said about the goals, under finance, I think there's a couple in there that were kind of specific to the transition from Dana taking on the business manager job, and I think at that point, I think that can be dropped.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think we need that anymore.
Yeah, the whole transition.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else under new agenda or questions on hold? If not, the recommended action is to adjourn this meeting. May I have a motion, please?
So
Yes.
moved.
Everybody sits on their own.
Colleen and second by Martha. Is that- All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? 7:42, Karen?
That's what I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, geez, here's my goals, my linking
Lincoln,
goals to agenda items.
should we
I just,
open the meeting back up?
no, it's okay. Look how the time I saved. It does enough.
Doing a PowerPoint presentation for them.
Right.
I actually printed out the sheet that has all like
Sarah, you're
where we
good to come to our Wilmington
accomplished some of the goals. I updated it and I'm gonna attach it to the next one.
Okay,
Sometimes.
great.
Thank you. I'm sorry to you for coming. Thanks.
Thank you all for doing your job and for